Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Lisa, and in this video we're just going to talk through how I've completed this mouse with the pan pastel background. In the description below I'll put a list of the colours that I've used, including the pan pastels and the Polychromos pencils. If you like this video, remember to like and subscribe, and you can add me on Insta and check out my work on Etsy. So let's get started with the background. So this is a reference photo I used for this one. I'll put a link in the description, so if anyone is wanting to try this one, you can access it below. So I wanted to break the background into two different sections, which was the top half and then the floor, just to make it a little bit easier to complete. So I started by going in and mapping in some of the orange, green, brown, purple and blue colours that you can see in the background. And then my thought was that I would go around with the darker colours just to blend it all in and darken it all up so that you would see the lighter colours coming through the darker colours. In hindsight, I feel like I could have just gone down with some of the darker colours, and I did put in a little bit too much of the lighter colours, because it did take me quite a while to get a really dark colour in the background. And I think as well I started using some of the raw umber extra dark, which is sort of a really dark brown colour, instead of using the neutral grey extra dark. So there are two different kinds of neutral grey extra dark. There's the 820.1 and the 820.2. The 0.2 is just a little bit darker. So I kind of wish I had have gone in with those colours first and then put the lighter colours around and over the top of the darker colours, because you can do that with the pan pastels. But as I'm quite new to the backgrounds, it's all just a learning curve for me, so it was good to practice and get used to it. And for the floor, I started to use some of the purple colours along with the titanium white and also some of the silver colours to mix that all together. I did use some of the titanium white to do the highlight sections, and I did also use some of my Polychromos pencils just to glaze over and get some really fine points in the little darker tufts of grass on the right hand side at the bottom. But it's just a matter of paying really close attention to your reference photo, putting in the mid-tones, so like the greens, purples, yellow colours and orange colours, and then going around those with the darker colours to build in some shadows, and then going over them with the light colours to build in some light tones as well. So when I got to the point of putting in these little pebbles and all the little details under the mouse's feet, I was sort of starting to get over it because I really just wanted to start working on the mouse. So I decided to cut out a piece of tracing paper, put that over the background, and then cut out the mouse so that I could start working on the mouse without rubbing the pan pastel background that I did before. And then later on I'll come back to the background and complete that after the mouse is in. So now it's time to get started with the exciting bit, which is the mouse, so let's get started with that. So to begin with, I start with the eye. Just go around lightly with the dark sepia pencil to map out the shape of the eye, and then I go in with a white waxy pencil. So this is a Holbein pencil. It just puts down a wax resist in the highlight of the eye so that if you do go over with your pencils, it won't have any colour in there. Then I started by putting in some warm grey 1, worked in some sky blue and light red violet because there are blue and purple tones in the eye, and then go over that with the dark sepia and then into the highlight with the sky blue. Then it's just a matter of going in with your dark sepia colour and going really tightly against the highlight section. So I put in both of the eyes, and putting some of the blue and purple tones underneath the dark sepia will help it look less flat and give it some more depth. So I thought I would just go into more detail about the layering process and the fur texture and technique that I use to complete this mouse here. So here is the original copy, and I've just put the same outline just on a spare bit of paper. I can show you some of the techniques. So to start with, make sure that you always have really sharp points. That's going to be how you can get really good detail in your fur texture, and how it makes it look sort of small strokes, and you can get really fine details. If you're struggling to get really sharp points, I do have a video that explains which sharpeners I use, so that's quite helpful. So we're going to go from light to dark. So I've got warm grey 1, ivory, beige red, burnt ochre, walnut brown, caput mortuum violet, and also dark sepia. So what we want to do first is have a look at where the different shades are of the mouse. So you can see just under the ear here, there's white and a little bit of blue, and then around the back section it's sort of a creamy tone as well. So you want to make sure when you're doing your base layers, you're not putting any colour in these sort of whiter sections. Otherwise it's going to put, you know, beigey colour in, which is just sort of what we want around the face and the back. So first of all, I just use my kneaded eraser to just erase some of the outline. So then the process for the base layer, so I'm using the warm grey one to start with. So underneath the ear here is where it's mostly white. So this one just shading in the direction that the fur is going. So you always want to make sure that you're putting your pencil strokes in the direction that the fur is going. So if I started going up and down, that's not the direction of the fur and it won't look realistic. Even though it is just sort of a base layer, you do want to go in the direction that the fur is going, and you do want to sort of mimic the same length of the fur as well. So you don't want to sort of scribble in big sections, you want to do the length of the fur as well. So then we'll go down here a bit. And in the back, so then this back section gets a little bit creamy, but we will still put some of that warm grey one in because it's just a good base layer to start with. And the more sort of layers that you have, the deeper the sort of fur texture will look. So then for this section here that has the white in it, we can start putting in some of the fur strokes. So I'll start going in the direction of the fur. Just really short, sharp fur strokes. So you're starting at the base and then flicking it off to the left. And you can also put some in the direction that the fur is going as well, because it'll make it look like it's overlapping. So it's not very easy to see, but it all just adds to the layers and the effects of the fur at the end. Perfect. So then wipe away the dust. So then that's sort of like the lighter section that we can see here, but then you can see that it's warmer and creamier over here. So we're going to use some of the ivory and do exactly the same thing, but we're going to go around the sections that aren't creamy, only in the creamy orangey sections. So in the direction of the fur, just gentle shading back and forth. It might be a little bit hard to see, but it does sort of come out with like a creamier tone on the page. So it's just adding in base layers and building up the texture and the tones of the animal. So it sort of stops around here and then it's white. And then just erase some more of this. So make sure to go in the direction. So the fur starts to go down this way and then this way and then this way. And then to get a bit darker, you can start to build in some of the fur strokes that you can see. So remember, do the length of the fur that you can see. And it's just building up and sort of getting where you can see the darker sections. And starting to map out all of those sort of shapes and sections that you can see. Flicking it into the fur. Perfect. And then where it's sort of orangey tones, it's sort of like a peachy colour. So then I use some of the beige red, which is a pink, just to add in some of that pinky colour. So again, this is a mixture of shading, so shading the colour down, and then also fur strokes in the direction of the fur. On the back of his body as well, he's quite pink up here. So then you can start to get darker in certain areas where there's more colour. So in this section here, it's sort of a darker section where he's sort of bending his body. Build in, make sure to go around the white areas. You don't want to put this in the white areas. Perfect. So it's just gradually building up the layers. So next we'll put in some of the burnt ochre, which is the orange colour. So again, make sure to have a really sharp point, and it's a mixture of shading and fur strokes. So when I'm talking about your fur strokes, in the direction of the fur, so this way, and then the quicker that you do them and you sort of start to cross them over each other will make it look more realistic. So if you're doing them all in the same length, the same direction, it looks a bit uniform. You sort of want to cross them over each other and build up those layers. And also, the further apart you do the fur strokes, the lighter the fur will be. So where it's sort of a lighter orangey colour up here, you want to do them sort of further apart. But where it's sort of a darker brown colour here, you can do them closer together. And then if we start putting some of these orange furs in against the direction of the fur, it will make it look like the white fur is overlapping the brown fur, which is what you can see here. So where it's sort of the orange fur going into the white fur, you can do your fur strokes this way and see how it looks like the white fur is going over the dark fur. So in the direction and against the direction. And you can see as well, like, always trying to use the sharp end of the pencil. So I do a couple of strokes like this and then rotate the pencil so that you have the sharpest point. Rotate the pencil. So in the direction and against the direction will make it look like it's all sort of overlapping each other. Perfect. And then because it's sort of a brown colour, you can just glaze this over. So like on the side, very lightly, back and forward, just saturate that colour down. So it'll give it colour and fill it in, but you still have the fur strokes here, making it look lighter and darker in certain sections, which makes it look more like fur. And then one pencil I didn't mention before is the burnt sienna. So we'll use this one now. So again, really sharp point, really small fur strokes against the direction and in the direction of the fur. Starts to build up that colour. And then you can put some of the Caput Mortem Violet. So have a look where it sort of gets really dark. So here, so you don't want to put too much of this in any of the other colours, in any of the other sections. Really, really sharp point will make it look nice and small fur strokes. Start to build up the tones in the direction and against the direction. And then walnut brown. So in the very darkest sections, you'll put this. So remember, in the direction of the fur, sort of crossing them over each other, and then against the direction. So keep rotating your pencil so you're always using the sharpest point. And then in this whiter section, that's when you can start to build in darker with the warm grey one. So from the dark section into the lighter section, same fur strokes as before. And then you can also work in some of the warm grey 3, just make mine a bit sharper. Darker hairs. Again, put them pretty far apart. In the direction and against the direction of the fur. And you can also see here there's a bit of blue, so you can put a bit of blue in. Same fur strokes. And then one thing that you can do is use just a white pencil So I've got a white luminance pencil here, but you can just use, you know, your white Polychromos or any sort of white pencil. And what you can do is just go over this very sort of lightly, and it will sort of smush all of the colours together and blend it all in. And then you can go over with your colours again. So you'd start from like the burnt ochre, then the burnt sienna, walnut brown, and start to add in more colour. So here's where you can start getting a bit firmer and a bit harder with your first strokes, and desaturate that colour again. So it'll make him look thicker, make the fur look thicker, make him look more realistic. Perfect. And then where you can see some of the darkest sections, like there are some sort of dark furs up here, you can use some of the dark sepia. Remember to make it really sharp. Just work in some of those. Again, put them sort of further away from each other, like this. So if you clump them all together, it'll make it look too dark and like a block of colour. So you want to sort of space them out a little bit. More dimension. And then what you can do as well towards the very end is get sort of a white waxy pencil. Put in some, you know, little white fur strokes if you like. Just gives it a little bit more of a highlight. Blends it in a bit. And if you want to add some more fur strokes in, you can also use like a slice tool like this. Slice them out if it's too dark. It's all about playing around with the colours and seeing where you want to go darker in certain areas. Some of the dark indigo is also good to use in the white sections. So very, very sharp, very, very light fur strokes. Perfect, so you can see it's pretty much like the same technique. It's just layering your colours and building them up sort of one at a time and working on sort of little sections at a time. So it's not sort of 100% the same as what I've done here, but it's the same sort of process, same fur technique. Just make sure you're going in the direction of the fur and you're layering them all up from lightest to darkest, because that's what will make it look thicker and deeper. So this is the full time lapse of the mouse and putting in all of the fur. So as just discussed, it's exactly the same process that I've just done. Just pick sections and work on small sections at a time. Be really patient with this. It doesn't take very long to build up the colours, but you do need to be patient and do sort of one section at a time. For the whiskers, I did use an embossing tool, which helps to indent the page so that the whiskers will be visible over the fur by the end of the piece. But I really hope that you like this video. Remember to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see below. Keep watching for the rest of the time lapse and see the final result, or just click ahead to the final result at the end. Leave me a comment below and let me know what you think of this one. Keep drawing. Thanks guys.